joining the Veterans History Project. My name is Sean Hall. I'm Director of Programming with the Veterans Breakfast Club. Joining me is Major General James E. Livingston. He's United States Marine Corps Medal of Honor recipient. General, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining me.
Sean, it's a pleasure. And like I said, it's a beautiful day here in Charleston, South Carolina. I hope it's likewise in where you're located.
It is. Thank you. Uh, I wanted to start today by asking you how you found yourself in the Marine Corps.
Well, it's a strange history. I went to North Georgia College for a year up in Dahlonega, Georgia, and it was a military school. And had no interest in going in the military and wanted to be an engineer. So they didn't have an engineering program, so I transferred to Auburn University. And about 1961, I got some indications that my group or the group of people I was at Auburn would probably, some of them be drafted, but you could get a waiver back in those days if you continued college. But I decided I got a draft notice. I'll make a decision whether or not to continue college or not accept a waiver and go ahead and do my duty. And I sent a card off to the Marine Corps officer selection officer down in Birmingham, Alabama. And the young major showed up, and I was a youngster back then. He probably well know, much younger than he was. But I looked at the guy, he's about 6'4", lady mean, had that good-looking marine blue uniform on, which I knew nothing about. I had really no family contacts. I'd seen pictures of Marines, but no specific contact. And I thought the world of the uniform. He explained the Marine Corps and the fitness, and I was always a big fitness bug. And decided I wanted to do my duty and started talking to him about the Marine Corps. And he said we have a program called Platoon Leader Class. But platoon leader class, you normally have to go during your sophomore and junior year to what is called junior platoon leader class. And between your junior year and senior year, the senior platoon leader class. And I was already in the category of being a junior at Auburn University. So I had one summer left. And he says, we can create a good deal for you. And the good deal is we'll send you to junior PLCs the first part of the summer at Quantico, Virginia, and send you to the second if you survive number one. I also at Quantico, Virginia. So not being too smart, I said, oh, that sounds pretty good. And he says, we'll get you in great shape and we'll give you all the beer you can drink. And I said, that really even sounds better. So I decided to go through both of the summer camps in the summer of '61. And I successfully completed both summer camps and saw a lot of my friends fly by the release side. They got involved with the same program. Only about 35 or 40% of the people who accepted that kind of a program because of lateness in joining concluded the program, but I concluded the program. Returned to Auburn, successfully graduated in a civil engineering degree at Auburn in '62, got commissioned, accepted a reserve commission. And the reason I accepted a reserve commission is that back in those days, if you're a reserve officer, they'd give you $300 and help pay for your uniforms. I said, shoot, Jesus, 1963, $300 is a lot of money. So I accepted a reserve commission and joined the Marine Corps and reported to Quantico and started another course of instruction called the basic school, which I think lasted for 6 or 9 months. I forgot. And concluded that and started my career in the Marine Corps up at Quantico and later at Camp Pendleton.
What qualities do you think you had back then that led to you being a good leader?
Well, I really, I was just not at a point in my thinking. I thought at that point that anything stood out would focus me on being a good leader because I didn't understand all the details of the military, but I would understand them at Quantico. And after I got submerged in the two courses, I did understand the fact that, I was a bit willing to push myself up front and try to be the most fit guy, try to always lead from up front, always set the example. And everything I did was focus on setting the example and never ask people to do anything you would not do yourself. And that's the reason I focus on fitness, how you appear in uniforms. Were you studious and could you understand how to tactically lead troops where you willing to bleed from up front, if you will, if that situation ever arose. So those were the things that sort of came to mind as I sort of got submerged in the training of Marine officers and got understanding what the real mission of the Marine Corps was. And that sort of has always stuck in my sort of thinking process all my life. It sort of been the three or four things that sort of led me through my whole 34 years of active duty in the Marine Corps.
What year were you deployed to Vietnam?
Well, the first time I was there in '63 and '4, and the Vietnam we got involved in. Vietnam was just starting to get crank up. We had some helicopters and advisors that were Marines, and we probably stayed off the course aboard Navy ships and an amphibious force consisted of Navy ships, Marine helicopters, and a reinforced Marine battalion. And the only thing we did at that point was go in and observe around Da Nang. And I always joke about it. The thing that happened at Da Nang, get a few VC mailbox, the guys on the beach would get combat pay. They had to have actual rounds coming in. But, I went in a couple of times, never really got any sort of sense of combat, really never really got shot at to speak of during that time frame, and returned as a reserve officer and decided I wanted to be a regular officer. And because I really enjoyed being around the young Marines and their spirit and how they just sort of made you feel good by their commitment to their country, their Corps, and to their brother Marines. So I became a regular Marine and reported from Cherry Point, where I was assigned at that point, down to Paris Island and became a series commander. And I would stay there for a while as a series commander. And by the way, married my beautiful bride Sarah there in 1966. So we've been at it for a long, long time. We don't have it perfect yet, but we're getting close. And I went from that to seagoing. I went aboard an aircraft carrier, USS Wasp, out of Boston, Mass. And the reason they had Marines on, they had a Marine detachment because they had nuclear weapons aboard it. And it was the CVS, meant it chased submarines off the coast. So we had responsibility for all the guard details, the captain's orderly, the admiral's orderly, the brig, and primarily nuclear weapons. I stayed on there for about a year. The thing was going into dry dock, and I said, I'm not going to sit on a ship in dry dock for another year in Boston, Mass. I love Boston. I'm not going to sit on an old Navy ship there for another year being rehab. So I sent him a letter of resignation, said, I'm resigning. And the captain said, hey, Captain, he was a captain, I was a captain, which used to be funny because my troops would call the motor pool to get vehicles to take me someplace. And they said a captain wanting a vehicle. And they always thought it was the captain of the ship, not the captain of the Marines. And that was always comical. But I resigned, and the captain called me up. The captain called me up and said, I got some good news for you. I'm not accepting your letter of resignation. And guess what? You're going to Vietnam. this was in '67 and '68. So I'm off to Vietnam for my second tour and arrived in the ring, I think, around September '67. And things are really heating up because of the NBA involvement, particularly up in the northern part of South Vietnam. And I joined the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, affectionately called the Magnificent Bastards, is the company commander of Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. And I was with them for 9 months until I got shot at the Battle of Dai Do in '68, May of '68, which we can circle back and talk about to the extent you want to. Until I got shot up in '68. It was medevac Tripler Hospital in Hawaii, and I spent a couple of months there in Hawaii there. And my dear wife, I hadn't seen for a couple of years almost, and we had a good R&R second honeymoon there on Waikiki Beach.
I'm sure that was a lot better than getting shot at in Vietnam.
Yeah, but the thing about it, and this is one that your people really enjoy, I got hit pretty hard in the leg with a 50 caliber machine gun off. Almost took my leg off. I took a box of shrapnel and stuff and an AK across the forehead. So they were really after me at the Battle of Dai Do, I guess. And
I guess so.
they had to teach her they had to teach her how to change the bandage on my wound. She got a 2-hour nursing instruction job where she could change the bandage on my wound before they let me out of the hospital at Tripoli, go down to Waikiki to have a break, a couple of cold beers down at the beach, and a couple of mai tais before I could be with her. But she did, and she stayed with me, I think, for about a week over there before she went back home. And I had to finish my tour. Back then, Marines had a 13-month tour, but they had to stay. So I had a couple of months left, so they sent me back to Okinawa, and I was the staff secretary for the 9th Marine Amphibious Brigade there on Okinawa until I finished my second tour in Vietnam. And if you would desire, I can talk about the third tour in Vietnam too.
Well, what I'd like to do is, as you mentioned, you're arguably most well known for your actions during the Battle of Dai Do, which you were awarded the Medal of Honor for. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners can catch a lot of that story in other podcasts. What I'd like to do is, and what I haven't quite heard in the other questions, is what your personal preparation was like the day before the Battle of Dido, but the day before things got very brutal. Like, how were you mentally preparing yourself at that point?
Well, I hope to answer it this way, and this is not being cute. You're always preparing yourself for that Battle of Dido.
Hmm.
It's not specifically on one given day that you're going down range. Where we were located for the 9 month up in up around Dong Hoa and Khe Sanh and Camp Carroll, C4, all those places up in that area, Columbia River. We were always, as the troops called it, and I call it today, and you probably saw it in some of these movies, outside the wire.
Yeah.
Means we were outside in the fight all the time potentially. So we never really stood down. We never, quote, got inside the wire, but a few times during that whole 9 month period. So you were always having to prepare yourself. But the big thing that I did, in contrast to trying to focus on your questions, which might be of interest, when I took over the company, it had been beat up pretty hard. So my whole emphasis was retraining the company, making them combat ready. And I pushed those kids pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I call them kids, I should say Marines and sailors. And the reason I did this, and listen to me on this, was two reasons. I wanted to win the fight, which we were sitting there to do, and I wanted to bring them home.
Mm-hmm.
And I committed myself when the Battle of Dido or any similar battle came, if I'd done my just possible effort in making sure we could win the fight and do the job and take care of one another during that fight, and I can bring them home, I'll give it my best. So the whole focus was on that emphasis during my whole stay in Vietnam.
Did you imagine that the Battle of Dido was going to be as brutal as it was?
No, and no one imagined that. No one had any sense at all about the size of the force and where the force disposition was, concentrations were, because our battalion, as you probably read in some of the comments, sort of got piecemeal into this fight. Mm-hmm. And every time one of our companies would get close to one of these little villages, they'd get another contest. And the one Pacific part, my company got involved in Dido, since we were protecting the bridge down close to Dong Hoa, the bridge across the Recipient River, connected Route 1, which was the primary route through South and North Vietnam. I was protecting that bridge, and I was not under the control of my battalion commander at that time. He got me returned to his control, and really the whole battalion basically was tied down to some situation is developed. The fight was developing, and Dido, there was one of the companies, golf company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, was in the edge of Dido and couldn't move. There's another company from another battalion tried to take Dido. Company commander got killed, and the troops just got the hell beat out of them. Mm-hmm. They withdrew, and he finally got me back, and I got back, and I joined the battalion command post, which was a couple of thousand meters, I recall, from where Dido was located, where the battalion headquarters. And he was just trying to determine best what the threat was, and no one could get their arm around the threat. And but he said, hotels tied down, golf is tied down, Fox is possibly tied down, and you're it. and you got to take Dai Do. So at 3 o'clock that morning, he issued an order for me to take Dai Do, even knowing that other company had just got the hell kicked out of them trying to do the same thing. But Echo Company, we were ready to go. We said, I looked at the troops and their young lieutenants. And I said, "We've been training for the NFL, guys. We're in the NFL now."
Yeah.
So at 5 o'clock that morning, we got an Echo line up on what is called the forward edge of the battle area, the FIBA, getting ready to go. And because that was kickoff time, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I told them to fix bayonets. And 189 bayonets clicking at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you got a haze over a rice paddy. We got to go through. I was looking for that psychological last piece of effort I could poke into those kids and say, "This is for real. We're going down range, and Echo's going to kick ass." And boy, I'll tell you, they never heard a bigger hoorah at 5 o'clock. So we were sending a message to the NBA that Echo was coming.
Yeah.
And we let them know we were coming. And so we kicked off and went after them. And you probably read about it. We got across the vast paddy and sort of got bogged down with the two initial assault platoons because they were shooting so many of the troops because there was no cover and protection except fire maneuver. And we had all kinds of supporting arms. We had naval gunfire, artillery, helicopters, every little conceivable weapon. Plus, Goff was in position they could provide some support and fire. But we got bogged down when we got about 100 yards from that big trench line, where it turned out to be, and 100 bunkers in that doggone thing, and all mutually supported. And I'd lost some Marines, and we were taking a lot of casualties. I had 189 Marines, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And they got bogged down, so I called up the reserve platoon and the company command post, and we penetrated that line, and that's what they told us at Quantico and the Marine Corps schools to do. When you run across a bunker position, you've got to penetrate it where you can flank them. You don't want to take the bunkers head on.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't afford to take the bunkers head on. So I took the command post and we penetrated the line and rolled them up to the right and the left. And that part of the, I think the battle probably concluded about 9:30 that morning. And it was like one hell of a fight. And I don't know how many people we killed, but Echo Company had 189 when I started, and we had 36 left when it was over. But we rolled them up, and they withdrew from there. And I was back in that area later, and this will be just sort of a comment would be of interest to you. They were boxed in that small village by the thousands. I mean, I went back and looked at all the bunker lines, and by the way, the guy who led them into that location was the VC chief, the Vietcong chief of Dai Do. And I've got to know him, and he and I've got to be good friends, believe it or not. And I was just with him last year. That was the fourth time he and I met. And he's 89 years old. And the damn guy, he's like me. I've got a little trouble with my legs, and he's got trouble with his. First thing he wanted to do is try to race me with his walking stick. And so we've had 4 meetings with cigars and a couple of Heineken's beers over the years. So
yeah,
and he always wants me to bring him a Barlow now for some reason. I always carry him a Barlow now. But where I got shot in Dai Do was interesting enough. There was a little kindergarten there, and I always give them some money and stuff. But they moved to kindergarten, so we went in on Sunday. Didn't get to see the kids, but they normally do a big show. But we went in and took the village with Golf Company, and Golf Company gave us good support. And we finally took Dai Do. And if you like, I can continue to talk to the second phase of the fight. Tell me when you want to turn me loose.
Well, one question I have so far for that day was thinking back to that word leadership. When you reflect on that day, what stands out to you in terms of leadership from your point of view?
Like I said, you got to lead from up front, and you got to smell the gunpowder.
Yeah,
that means you got to be up. You got to be up where the fight is taking place, and particularly when it gets to a situation that's where you, Colonel, you got to get up where the troops can visibly see you, and be aware you're there. Presence is a big factor for command. If commander tries to lead from the rear in a threat situation like this, is not going to get the job done. So that's the reason time I had to commit myself to this fight directly. Okay.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of that second part, please continue.
Well, we were there, and I only had, I think, about 36 Marines left. I think we had about 10 or 12 killed at this point, but the rest of them did medevac. And by the way, just as a summary of the action, I think it was 89 that was killed here in that fight, 297 medevac. This is the battalion total, and about 176 were not medevac. So we only had about 700 in the battalion. So you do your math. And there were not many Marines that were not either killed or shot, wounded during that time frame. But to finish up the second phase of the fight, the regimental commander directed our battalion commander, who incidentally we just buried, a great man, Brigadier General Bill Weiss, just buried him in Arlington. And we said goodbye to a great warrior. And he directed Hotel to come around my left flank and continue the attack. They only had about 70 Marines. The company commander was a good friend of mine, Jim Williams, had been wounded, took a piece of shrapnel in the back and cut her artery and almost bled to death. But the two young lieutenants were doing the best they could. They were new, fairly new. There was one that was really named Vic Taylor, was really a super young officer. And Scotty Prescott was another. They were capable young fellows, but they were new at being a company commander. So they got up there and about 250 yards from Echo and got surrounded. And the call came over the radio, where's Echo? And I really felt bad about asking the Marines in Echo Company, because we'd gone from 189 to about 36 and telling them this is only a couple hours later, that we got to get in another big fight after you guys are going through all this crap. And I said, I'm going, you Marines got to decide if you want to go. I'm going to try to help those guys, because I'm not going to let your fellow Marines from Hotel Company get wiped out.
Yeah.
So I packed up in my command post, and we started moving, and all the Marines joined up, and we slugged it out and joined in Hotel Company. And they only had 70 and probably less by the time we got there. We had probably less than 100 Marines, and they were just wave after wave of MVA. So we slugged it out there with them, and it got, I'm not going to get into the detail, but it pretty well imagine what happened.
Right.
And during the sequence of that battle, I'm the senior Marine, and everyone is sort of, I guess, focusing in on me. And I'd been hit a few times for shrapnel and all that stuff, but I was not medevac. And I got shot in the leg and went down. And all the Marines around me were young Americans doing the best they could do under that circumstance. Yeah. One of the young lieutenants had been hit. So we were down to the corporals, primarily corporals, being the leaders of units. And when I went down, everyone, sort of said, the skipper's down. And I said, no, I'm not out, though. And I said, what I want you guys to do, and I told the battalion commander, we need to pull back, because I'm down. We don't really have senior leadership here. We need to pull back and try to rescue the residual of the Marines that's up against all this MBA. Yeah. Because I don't have any idea, because these guys keep coming at us in waves. And so he said, pull back. But I told the guys that you guys pull back and leave me here, and I'll give me a couple machine guns and a shotgun or two, and I'll cover you guys while you're pulling back. And obviously the Marines were not going to do that. And a couple of young Marines grabbed me and said, Skipper, we're not going to leave you, and they pulled me back. So we pulled back, got all the living ones out. And I don't think we left any bodies, but I can't swear to it. But we pulled back, and I was medevac at that point, and with all the other medevacs based on that second phase of the fight, we pretty well got them out. And that was my involvement in Dai Do. And it went on for a little period after that. And the next day, I think it was, after that day, I think it was the next day, Vargas, who had a golf company, the standing companies for Fox, company commanders, and the battalion commander all got involved. It was a residual all force to try to see what they could do with the NVA forces. The battalion commander got shot, was medevac. Sergeant Major got killed. I was medevac. Vargas was the only one there with the S3, who was operations officer, Major Freshmorn, who had sort of taken over the battalion. And they were hanging on that night. And the next morning, they went looking for the NVA, and they disappeared.
Hmm.
And a lot of dead bodies. They brought in bulldozers and all that stuff. And I've heard all the different size forces. I've heard a trench line with 1,200 dead NVA, and I've heard everything. But it was a brutal battle, and the best math we could put together, there was the NVA division in there, and based on their way they were organized, task organized, they were up to about 10,000 North Vietnamese, and this was the outfit. It was a 320th Charlie, I think I recall the correct number. But that was sort of the Hanoi group. They were the elite of the elite. These guys were big, good haircuts, brand new weapons, brand new equipment. They were just as outfitted, except for close air support and things that we had, and artillery to the extent. And they had a lot of artillery.
Yeah.
But we had artillery, and they had artillery. They didn't have the naval gunfire, the fixed wing, but they had everything else. But they had a hell of a lot more troops. They had a chance to dig in there probably for weeks. So whatever advantage we had, they had another advantage that was favorable to them is in a position to defend. But the goal that we think we've all concluded, and even talking to the NVA, Hue had taken place a couple of weeks before Hue City. I'm sure you're familiar with that battle.
Yes.
And I almost got in that battle, believe it or not. I missed that battle by 2 days. We all concluded that their job was they were going to cross the Qua Viet River and seize Dong Ha, which was the big logistics base for all the Marine forces up in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And also, that was where all the artillery is located. It was also the headquarters for the 3rd Marine Division. And they had 10,000 troops, and we concluded, and we all agree, that what they had in mind, if they wanted to seize that, and if they had seized Dong Ha, that logistics base, and the headquarters for the 3rd Marine Division, and also for all the artillery, they think the war might have ended, because after Hue City, a loss of this sort of Dong Ha, we may have quit the war based on what Cronkite was saying and all the things that were happening in the press and the country relative to the Vietnam War that was going on at that time. Wow. So that was they saw this as a strategic opportunity of significance.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I think they threw the whole kitchen sink at this operation. And the only thing stopped them is the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, and 700 magnificent bastards.
And you being one of them, absolutely. I know we're coming up to the end of our time together here, but I did want to ask you, obviously being awarded the Medal of Honor, what does the Medal of Honor mean to you?
Well, I look at this in a couple of ways. I look at this as I'm aware for all the Marines that didn't make it back, and it signifies how I feel about them. And I want to make sure I have, when I do things, it's done to the best of my ability. But being a Medal of Honor guy, it was one day in my life, and I concluded I was not going to let the Medal of Honor define my life. I wanted to be a good Marine every day and measured on my performance of that day as a Marine. So it's a day of my life. It's certainly something that people are aware of. It's been helpful. I'm not gonna kid you. It's probably been helpful to me in the Marine Corps. It obviously has to be helpful to maybe in the civilian world after I got out of the Marine Corps. I went to the civilian world. I'm not going to say it's not been helpful, and I would have not been as successful as I have been if I hadn't had the medal. So I don't know if that's the fact or not. But I didn't let the Medal of Honor, and still don't let it define my life. It's a day in my life, and I remember that day, and I remember it most of all because of the loss of life, the young Marines that didn't make it home. And that's one element of my mission I always look back on. always said I was going to do the best I could to bring them all home. And I think I can look at the Battle of Dai Do, even though we lost 89 Marines, certainly a number from Echo Company. I think I give it my best trying to carry out that element. We know we fulfill the element of the mission about taking them out. But, you know, the ones we didn't bring home, and I think of those kids in this term. These were 19, 20, 21, and 22-year-old young American Marines and sailors. The reason I say sailors, in the Marine Corps, the chaplains, the doctors, and corpsmen are all sailors.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I think about this, they didn't have a chance to be fathers and grandfathers like I've had a chance. So I think that's the thing that sort of is the memory item from this fight, of what they missed in life and what they gave up for the American people. American people don't understand how remarkable these young Americans are. It's just remarkable. They're all over the country, in graveyards all throughout the country. And let me just please say, when you see a Vietnam veteran, you don't have to say, welcome home. He's home. I don't like that. You say, we take pride in your service to your country. You give your duty and your country call, you serve and give it the best of your ability. And that's what I want to recognize. It's welcome home stuff. I'm done and through with that stuff. Say, talk about the pride and talk about how successful, and this is the other subject I'll comment I'd make, how important it has been and how the Vietnam veterans have served their country where they were mistreated, as a lot of them talk about.
Mm-hmm.
They have made sure that the programs in the VA and all over the country have been instituted to take care of the next generation of veterans. So all the Desert Shield, Desert Storm, War on Terrorism veterans ought to look at these Vietnam veterans and say, thank you. I've been well served by the country. I've been well served by the VA and all the various activities, because what happened to the Vietnam veterans and what they committed to was trying to do everything they could do to make sure these veterans were taken care of. And that's sort of what I would say is my concluding comment.
Well, I can't thank you enough, General Livingston, and I echo that comment of being proud of your service and what it has done for me and for our country. Again, this was talking with Major General James E. Livingston. You can check out more of his story in the book Noble Warrior. General, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and I hope that I get to spend some time with you again.
And it was a pleasure talking to you. And I'm glad having a chance to talk to you. And thank God we're all Americans. It's a great country. We better love it, and we better take care of it, okay?
Thank you.